to the Marketing Drip, where we drip tips to scale your business digitally. Abby here, and the topic today is all about hiring, how to hire the right people to fit your culture, how to keep employees, and if you're looking for a position, what to look for to ensure it's a job that's right for you. I talked with Kevin Simpson, the COO at Arthur Marshall. Kevin is a highly awarded recruiter that worked at 2 national recruiting firms for over a decade and has worked with well over 300 dental, physician, and executive placements managed. On top of his background in recruiting, he was also the owner of a physician practice, revenue consulting firm. So he brings in another level of knowledge to build, develop, and mentor teams. So I'm not kidding when I say he is deeply rooted in understanding not only the recruiting of the right people, but really understanding the human element of hiring. His experience in recruiting as well as business development has given him a unique set of skills that ultimately transfer to clients, employees, and candidates alike. And that's why I'm so excited for today's episode. So let's begin today's drip, provided by Digital Resource, a full-service digital marketing agency that is your resource for everything digital. Hey, Kevin, thank you so much for joining us today and dripping some knowledge. I really appreciate you joining the episode.
Hey, thanks for having me. We're really excited.
Yeah, I'm really excited to pick your brain because obviously the big topic right now, and has been ever since COVID and just doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon, is hiring, right? Just really making sure that people do have full staffs and that they are ready to go. I know when it comes to marketing, they put these efforts in, they've got the new patients flowing in, but they need the staff to be able to manage the calls and make sure that they're taken care of. So what would you give practices tips on making sure that they're hiring staff, the right staff?
Well, I'll tell you that's kind of a loaded question. There's a lot to unpack.
I know. I'm throwing curveballs.
Well, hey, I appreciate it. Here's the thing. Right now, the market is crazy,
Yeah.
and it's from the very lowest level all the way to the top. There's difficulty for everybody, whether that be in a dental practice, a sales organization, right? Anywhere that you go, we're really seeing struggles within the market. The cost to hire people has gone up. The ability to find those people has dramatically decreased, right? And so what I always tell a lot of places, the same thing that I would preach within our organization, is it really starts with culture. What you want to do as you're starting to look and get out there and get ready to recruit is you want to ensure that you have everything in place to be successful with that recruitment. And that, again, really starts with a good, solid foundational culture, right? Or do you have the right things in place to attract the type of candidate that you want? And then you need to ask yourself, what type of candidate do I want? One of the things that we run into a lot within our industry, whether we're recruiting an office manager, a dentist, a specialist, whatever it may be, is everybody wants Michael Jordan. Everybody wants the very best of the best, but are you willing to do what it takes to get the best of the best? Those are questions that you need to ask yourself before you put yourself in the market. Much like a realtor might tell you, you never want to go to market and overprice your house, right? Because you overprice that house, then what happens is you start lowering that number, right? And what you're doing is you're chasing the market instead of the market chasing you.
Oh, that's so strong. I love that. You're chasing the market instead of the market chasing you. Well, I mean, so by understanding, the caliber of talent that you want, the amount that you're willing to pay, how do you really understand, how do they understand what to look for and what is to decide? Because they might just be I want both, right? How do I decide which one and where I have to limit down whatever they need?
Yeah, well, and number one, I would say that's where a group like our organization comes into play. Yeah. We, not only are we recruiters, right? I tell all of my recruitment staff that really you're not a recruiter, you're a consultant. Your job is to step into a practice, really step into somebody's shoes and see, what their pain points are, what it is that's a struggle for them, what it is that they're looking for. Seek to understand before being understood, right? Mm-hmm. And so a lot of that, our guys, they spend a lot of time looking over the entirety of the market, not just the bubble that they're in, trying to determine, what's going to make somebody competitive across the nation instead of just within their local area. There are other resources besides obviously utilizing a firm. Becker's is a great source of information if you want to learn about compensation, things of that nature. And of course, if you really want some in-depth knowledge about what the the average salaries and things of that nature are. That's something that we actually do free of charge for our clients,
Yeah.
right? So if somebody were to say, hey, I'm not quite ready to do a full-on recruitment. I'm not quite ready to have somebody come in and do a full consultation of my practice, but maybe you can help me out, Kevin. Can you just give me an idea of what I should be paying? That's something that we can talk about. We absolutely always are a value-added resource in that way.
I love that too, because it is like, okay, let's say you have your culture figured out. You know the position that you're trying to hire. You know the talent, the caliber that you want. Now
Sure.
it's really writing that out, right? Having that job description, understanding the salary. So you guys help with that. Is there anything that helps guide them through that process to make sure they're doing it right and they feel confident about it?
Yeah, so here's the best advice I can give to job descriptions,
Yeah.
right? Job descriptions, salaries, advertising, because that's really what you're doing. You're marketing yourself. One of the best pieces of advice I can give to people is that when you go out to market yourself, market your good. Don't market your bad, right? Highlight the advantages, right? If I were creating a dating profile, for example, right?
Yeah.
I don't, I want to highlight all my good stuff, right? If I'm really short, I don't, jump on my profile and say I'm 5'2",
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But if I'm 6'4", hey, that's
Hey.
the advantage. I'm going to highlight that one, right? And so those are things that I tell people. So my career prior to transitioning into dental recruitment was in physician recruitment, right? So I did retained physician recruitment across the United States in very, very, very small areas, critical access hospitals, areas of the highest need. I used to work with a facility called Stanton County Hospital out in Johnson City, Kansas.
Yeah.
True one stoplight town, one stoplight. That was it, right?
Yeah.
And we were successfully able to recruit 3 primary care providers into that community over the course of about 3 years.
Wow.
Right. And part of it was we focused on the good. We focused on what was great about that practice. And we really kind of downplayed some of the negatives, right? Once you get that person on site, you gotta address those, right?
Yeah.
But wait till you get that person on site. Wait till they're within your practice. Wait till you're able to form a meaningful bond with that person before you start talking about what those negative things are.
Yeah.
We all have negative aspects, whether we're people or practices, right? And it's just like in dating. And that's really what interviewing is. You're dating, right? And so you don't walk into your first date and tell them all your dirty laundry, right?
Gotta build up to it. Yeah.
You build up to that, right? I want to lead with my best foot forward. And so
Yeah.
when you're creating your job descriptions, right, you're creating your advertising, you want to put the best foot forward. And then let them get to know you. And then we can talk about all the other stuff. I'll tell you just from experience, I've had, when I was doing physician recruitment especially, we would have hospital executives and CEOs that would say, hey, we want to do a phone interview prior to bringing this person out for an on-site interview. And I was always against it because I knew what was going to happen. You've got a CEO that's in this small town, and they have these preconceived notions. And most people don't know this, but most CEOs in critical access hospitals, they were there for a period of 3 years. They were stepping stones, right? They were in that small community looking to build up their presence and then get to a bigger facility and a bigger facility and a bigger facility. So they have preconceived notions about the negatives of that community or the negatives of that practice. And what they want to do almost every time is get on the phone with that candidate and they want to tell them all the bad things. And then when that candidate says, yeah, I'm not really interested in moving forward, they come back to me and go, Kevin, what'd you send me that guy for? And I was like, well, he was interested, but when you got him on the phone, you talked him out of taking a look.
Right.
And a lot of practices do that. They find themselves, they want to try to weed it out. They want to try to weed out the wrong person. And in the process, what they do is they undersell themselves. There's so much more value. And you really got to lead with that. You got to, we tell a lot of our consultants, right, that, they've got to be more excited about that conversation when they get on the phone than anybody else because excitement transfers, right? And so if I'm on the phone, I'm telling you how great this practice is, how great this facility is, how they're going to make great money. They've got great patient base, the schedule's fantastic, everything's good, and everybody's happy. They're go-lucky. And then, they get on the phone with the practice owner, and the practice owner is like, well, it's our patient base isn't very strong, and we've got a lot of no-shows, and you lead with those negative things. Well, then what do you expect? You're never going to get somebody to come into your community.
Makes sense. It's almost like you're kind of looking out for people. You think that you're warning them, or not even warning them. You're telling them, you're educating them. Like, I want to make sure you know what you're getting yourself into.
Yes.
Or to your point, it could be challenging to make sure that how are they going to answer this response, and how are they going. But in return, you could be reflecting poorly on the company and losing out on talent when it's their own clean slate. Like, it's their own experience to determine, right? So don't put that perception into their mind when they haven't even experienced it firsthand, and really make sure that it is the best and it has the capabilities of being even more awesome. Just because you might have had a bad day, don't don't like shoot yourself in the foot by not attracting real talent. That's so interesting. Yeah.
100%.
Because I'm a very positive person, but I'm like reflecting on myself, and it's like, yeah, I definitely want to tell people, like, oh yeah, be aware of this, and there might be this that happens. But it's like, to your point, it's like dating. Why air that out there? It's their own experience for them to determine that and their own decision. But lay out the facts and let them make that choice on their own.
Absolutely. 100%. 100%.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. As far as like, obviously there's different positions to be hiring on, right? Especially when it comes to a practice. So there's definitely different ways of or different conversations that you're having. So let's say you're bringing on an associate for a doctor. That's going to be different than an office manager, a hygienist, an assistant, right? So what should people be looking for as far as bringing on a partner or an associate to their practice?
That's a great question. And, I don't want to side skirt it, but
Yeah.
here's the reality. Everybody's different. You've got to, and that goes back to what we talked about at the get-go, which is you've really got to determine what it is that's important to you. Because once you figure out what's important to you, what are we tell people all the time that you're never going to find utopia, right? Nothing is going to be 100% perfect, right?
Yeah.
You've got to kind of look for that, what I call that 80%. What's that 80% mark? And so then ask yourself, when you're looking for an associate, what's really important for you? Are you looking for somebody who is just a very, very high producer? Are you looking for somebody that you can get along with, right? I mean, that's obviously really important. You're going to spend a lot of time with this. Are you looking for somebody that's going to be a hard driver, right? What is your personality type? A lot of times, sometimes one of the biggest struggles that I had early on in my career in going out and trying to find people and recruiting and growing my business was that, I wanted to find people that were just like me. I wanted to find just like me. And if you constantly are going out and looking for somebody who's just like you, you're going to be very, very disappointed, right? Most people aren't like you. And if you're a very high performer, right? If you're an A-type personality, you're a very, very high performer, you're a control freak, right? These are things that you need to think about. These are conversations that you need to have with yourself and with your consultant if you are going to use a consultant, right? Because there are different fits for different people. So I think the most important thing is for you to figure out what it is that's most important for you in your practice before you hit the market.
I love that you say like if you want them to be a high producer, if it is personality, is it relationship? That's so true, because a lot of times you go in and you're just looking at their resume, or you're looking at like what they stand for. And it is, especially as an associate, and if it's like a private practice, it's a partnership. You're really trusting them. And a lot of times, I don't know if this is what you experience, is it seems like it's a lot of doctor owners that want to eventually retire out, so they bring on their associate to take over the practice. Well, that's a lot of responsibility. You want them to take care of your legacy in a sense, right? So what do you want to stand? And I love that you say it that way, because usually it's like, oh, are they talented and can I stand them? And it's like, yeah, but like, do you enjoy working? Is their personalities actually balancing each other out? Because if you're really a type A, you probably want somebody that's going to be counteractive for you and have that more maybe more of an eye that's going to be listening to your team and listening to what's going on too. So yeah, that's really interesting.
You're so spot on. I think that corresponding personality types are so important, right?
Yeah.
Whether you're talking about running a business, a dental practice, a marriage, right? And again, I go back to the dating paradigm, because that's what it really is.
So true.
You're in a marriage.
Yeah.
right? Like, how do you guys interact? What's going to be important for you? Are you emotionally tied? One of the things that we struggle with sometimes with some of the practices we work with is you'll have folks that are looking for an associate, and they want that associate come in, they want them to eventually buy them out.
Yeah.
But you've spent 25 years building this practice, and whether you believe it or not, whether you want to admit it, you have an emotional tie. You're emotionally tied in. And so you want to find just the right person that fits in your little bubble. And that's not always the case, right? Sometimes you have to divest yourself from those emotions, because at the end of the day, you got to remember that if you want this person to come in and buy you out, they're buying it. They're buying all of it. And you got to let go of some of that control on some level. But you talked about the resume, right? You talked about you get their resume and you're looking at it. So we tell a lot of our recruiters here, the resume is simply the requirements for the job, right? If I look at a resume of a dentist, it tells me nothing. It simply says, hey, here's this person. They went to school. They have the certificates they need. Here's how many years of experience they have. It tells you nothing. So, one of the things that we do is we actually write up what we call candidate stories. A lot of places call them cover letters, right?
Yeah.
And I hate that. I think it's too formal.
Yeah.
I think what's really important is stories is what sells. Stories is what
Ooh, I love
sells.
that.
Right?
Yeah.
We want to tell a story. I want to tell you what the story is about this person. Who is this person? What's their life, right? A CV is just the footnotes, right? The story is the book. And that's what's really important to read and understand.
Oh, I love that, because then you can really understand their goals, what they're trying to achieve, and if they align with yours. Because to your point, the
Yes.
cover letter is always like their pitch, right? Like this
Yep.
is what I want you to think I am, and I'm going to say all these
Yep.
fancy schmancy words to make you feel like I am up to. But it's like at the end of the day, if you do want that partner, if you do want somebody to work with, you actually want to understand their story. Oh, I love that. It's their story. That's
Yep.
beautiful. Do you guys create do you get it printed and get it
Yeah.
published?
Yeah.
Oh, I
Absolutely.
love it. I love it. Have cover art and that's
Yeah. Well, I don't know if we haven't got that far yet. Maybe digital resource can help with that.
hey, a collaboration. I love this. I'm always down. I love that. Well, and then when it comes to making sure, as far as like their story, making sure that they are a good fit, I think it also could lead into other team members too. Like, do you guys go into more? Do you have that extensive of the same process? I guess for any position, does it matter, or is it less than?
Yeah, I think our process is the same
Yeah.
regardless. We recruit everything from the office manager on up. Obviously we really got our start. To give you a little more background, I kind of mentioned it before, but we got our start 20 years ago. We've been doing this for quite some time, and we originally started in the physician space. Recruiting for critical access hospitals, things of that nature. We've worked in academic institutions, critical access hospitals, private groups. And so whether I'm recruiting a dentist, a specialist, prosthodontist, orthodontist, periodontist, you name it, right? Or I'm recruiting an office manager, a treatment coordinator, a hygienist, any of those things, which, by the way, hygienists talk about the most difficult recruit that's out there
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
No matter what we're doing, we're trying to get the whole picture. Now, does it change somewhat? Do the questions change? Absolutely. But we're still trying to understand that person's story.
Yeah.
Right? I want to know everything I can. And really what our goal is recruitment is tough. It takes a lot of time. It's very time consuming. So what we do is we spend probably 2 to 3 hours with a candidate prior to ever sending that over to a client.
Wow.
I mean, think about that. We're on the phone having conversations. Usually we're talking with not just the candidate, but if we're dealing with somebody who's going to be making a move, across the country, and we see a lot of that, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you start talking about specialists and dentists, associates. We want to talk to their spouse. I want to understand what their kids are into. What do their kids do? What's going to be important? Because if I'm talking to somebody and the associate's telling me that, oh gosh, the practice is fantastic, it's wonderful, it's great, the community is great, but then I get on the phone with his wife and she says, oh, by the way, my son is a competitive swimmer. And then you go and look at the community and go, well, there's no swim team.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
You gotta really dig deeper, and most people don't. You're looking surface level, and you're looking at it as an employer. You got a million other things to do, right? I've got one. My job is to recruit for your
That's
practice. My
right.
job is to cut through that noise so that before you get to that finish line and you go, man, this is great, this is fantastic, I got them. Their spouse goes, not interested because John doesn't have that swim team. And if we would have done the work on the front side and understood that, we would have saved the time and the expense
Huh.
associated with that interview because they never would have got that far.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. And that's so true because you just can't. Do you find a lot of times that hiring is just a box that people check, right? Like they know they need to hire, they check it off, and then now obviously it didn't work out. A few months, weeks down the road, all over
Oh,
again.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's because,
No, go
no, I
ahead.
was going to say, and it's because of, and then I think you were going to answer it. So go for
It's because of, yeah, you're right.
it.
It's because of all the little things. It's the little things that are in the process that you just miss.
Yeah.
And it does require a lot of time and effort on the front side to make sure that you don't miss it on the back side. Now, it's not perfect. By no means can I tell you it's perfect. You're dealing in a human commodity,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And humans change their mind. They do things that are off the wall. It's not, I tell guys when I bring them into our industry, that this is going to be the most difficult job that you ever have. And something they're like, wow, why is it so difficult? I said, well, imagine that you're going to you work at a car dealership and you're going to sell a car. So imagine you walk into this car dealership and I'm the salesman and you come in and you go, I'm looking for a really fast car and I want it yellow. I go, hey, no problem, Abby. Let me take you over here and I bring this Corvette out. And this Corvette, it's sleek, it's yellow, it's got all the features you
I'll
want.
take
You're
it.
just in love. You're like, yes, sign on the dotted line, 29% interest rate. I'm in, right?
Let's
You do
go.
all that.
Yeah.
You're ready to go. And I go, great, thanks, Ab, thanks for coming in. And I hand you the keys. And then you walk over to that car and you hit the unlock button, and it doesn't unlock. You're like, what's going on? You hit it again, it doesn't unlock. You don't understand what's happening. And you walk over, and I go, oh, sorry, Abby, the car didn't like you. That's what recruiting is.
Oh,
Right?
oh, my
It's a
heart.
two-way street, right? I've
Yeah.
got to you've got to make two sides mesh together, and so it's a difficult thing to do. It does require a lot of effort, and I think sometimes practices they underestimate the amount of time and resources it's going to take. Here's what makes it even more difficult. We just talked about that car example, right? Now imagine that not only did you have to go sell it two ways, like the car's got to like you got to like the car, right? Oh, but by the way, there's only about two of those cars in the country, and there's 200 Abbeys.
Ah.
That is the real challenge that you run into. So not only is it that we've got to mesh together, and I've got to find the perfect fit, but even that fit that makes sense for you, like if I'm the dentist or the associate sitting over here, you may be the perfect fit for me. But what if there are 100 other practices that offer everything that you do? How do you get to the front of that line, right? And that's what we do. We help you cut through that noise. We help to sell above you, right? And we help to get you to the cream, rise you to the cream of the crop. Not only are we trying to go out and consult with you to understand what it is you're looking for, but we're also consulting with you to go, hey, here's one or two small things that we can do to make you more competitive. That's going to make you more attractive in the market, right? And that's really the secret sauce.
Yeah. And it's that peace of mind, right? Like you said, this is all you do. We always talk about that as well. Like, if yes, you could do marketing in your office 100%, but it's not going to be as effective, and it's not going to, you're literally taking away your own time as being a clinician by trying to figure something out that we already figured out, like
Yep.
that we already know about. And that's the whole point of having relationships and experts on your team to make sure that you can delegate that out and they can do it more effectively. I love the conversations we've had before too, Kevin, and it's not only about hiring, it's about retaining that team and building that culture. And I love that aspect of it. Of it's not checking a box, right? It is making sure that you're at your job, if not more than your home life sometimes, right? Like you want to feel like that is a home in a sense. You want it to be a loving environment, an exciting environment, be on the same mission. And I love that you said it doesn't matter the type of employee, because sometimes that does seem apparent, right? Like they're like, oh, it's a hygienist or an assistant versus like a doctor, and it's like that's just as important. Like that's the culture. If you have a bad apple on your team that's bringing everybody else down, you could have the best doctor in the world that's there that doesn't want to be there anymore because there's bad energy going on. So making sure that everybody is just as crucial and that role is just as important. And I love that you guys take on that strategy every time because it is very competitive out there, and not only competitive, but we're in the age of digital, right? We can see all of the competition, and when you compare it to dating, we can swipe right and left every single second of the day and see what else is out there and say, oh, I could go here and get paid this much money. I might not be as happy, but it's all of the human nature that we have battling inside us. I don't know how y'all do it because that is hard. Like cracking down people and getting them happy, but oh my gosh, so kudos. You must love it.
We do. It's fun.
Yeah. Well, we talked a little bit about how to hire. What about people that are trying to find a job? So, I mean, specifically doctors that are finding a job, but if we're saying everybody's balanced out, I mean, I think anybody that's looking for a job, what would you recommend or advice that you would lead them in the right direction?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, number one, it's a candidate-driven market right now, right? A lot of the power is in the candidate's hands. I would also tell, just like I tell the client, right? You know, you've got to make sure you know what it is you want. I'd say the same thing to the client, to the candidate. And from a candidate perspective, you kind of touched on a second ago. Some people just want to make as much money as they possibly can.
Yeah.
And let me be the first to say, nothing wrong with that.
No.
Totally okay. Right? There are people that's their goal. There are others that say, I just want the best quality of life. If I could have my druthers, I'd work 2 days a week and I would, have a half day every other month, and I would go skiing 3 days a week, right? I mean, and that's okay.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. Let's just make sure that it fits, right? Everybody's got to fit like puzzle pieces, right? What I would tell those guys is this. When you go into a situation, number one, always put your best foot forward. Even if you walk into that situation, you get to the interview, maybe you've thought, this probably isn't the fit for me. Hear it out. Listen all the way through. Put your very, very best foot forward. Be the best interviewer that you can be. Your goal at the end of the day is to get an offer. Doesn't mean you have to take an offer. Your goal is to get an offer. That's your competition. And so I tell anybody, whether it's somebody that's an office manager, a dentist, a specialist, walk in with an open mind, right? Because you never know what you're going to learn. And think of this as a competition. You're in a competition to get an offer. Now, what you do with that offer, that's up to you. We'll figure that out at the end. But make sure you get it.
Love that. Because if anything, if it's not, I love that you say you don't have to take it too. Like, but getting there, and it's practice if anything, right? But also making sure that you are putting your best foot forward and making sure that you are stating exactly what you want. We always say, Brene Brown, clear is kind, unclear is unkind. Like, it's not their fault if they don't know what you want. You have to state it and be honest about it. And that's when you typically fall on the right path of whatever you're looking for.
Well, and Abby, I'll tell you this, I can tell you over the course of my career, I cannot count how many times someone's gone into an opportunity, they've accepted a job somewhere else, right? And they're like, this is kind of a waste of my time. And then that other place, it falls apart and they come back, right? And you always got to remember, right? Like I never burn a bridge.
Yes.
Never burn a bridge. You always want to have an opportunity to fall back on. And the dental space is a small world. It just is.
Really
a small world. So everybody knows everyone. And if if you're not putting your best foot forward every time, then that can really come back and bite you. And I've seen it happen more than once.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I do want to go back to, you mentioned this earlier, and it's such a big topic of conversation, and that's hygiene and making sure that people are hiring. What are tips that you're giving to either party to make sure that, like, do you foresee this prolonging? Like, what do you see going on as far as like the scarcity of having a hygienist stay with you? No comment.
I don't want to scare all viewers, but here's my perspective.
Yes.
If you have a hygienist need, start recruiting early. If you think you're going to have a hygienist need, start recruiting now. if you think that you might possibly down the road in a couple of years have a hygienist need, start recruiting now. And I'm halfway joking, but I'm serious, right?
Yeah.
The hygienist, it's tough. A lot of hygienists are leaving the industry. COVID really drove a lot of folks out, and
Yeah.
those that are staying in, it's becoming more and more difficult to find them in a permanent environment. They have realized that, oh, you know what? I can travel, right? I can go and do temp staffing for just a short period of time from practice to practice. And not only that, but I can command very, very high dollars. Abby, I will tell you, we took on a recruitment effort in Yakima, Washington.
Okay.
It was a tough area. They were paying $120 an hour to their hygienist, and they still couldn't find anybody. I was blown away.
Oh my
They had hygienists
gosh.
working in their practice that were making $200,000 a year, and that wasn't enough to get somebody there. It still took us. It took us 4 months to find somebody at
Oh my
$120
gosh.
an hour. That's how
4
difficult the market
months?
has gotten. It did.
Oh
It
my
did. And so I
gosh.
tell people there was a time where you could take on a dentist associate search or a hygienist search and have that filled within 60 to 90 days, no time.
Yeah.
That's not the case anymore. The market has shifted dramatically, and you've got to get out ahead of your needs. And what you really don't want to do is find yourself in a position where someone gave you notice and you didn't start recruiting until they were about to leave. If someone gives you notice, here's my thing. The day someone gives you notice, start recruiting. If you think that someone might be giving you notice, start recruiting. I mean, that's the type of market that we're in right now. And, quite honestly, I don't know that it's going to change. There are some increases in some of the hygiene training programs that are trying to, kind of push more folks in. But I've even seen practices now have such a hard time finding hygienists that they're hiring retired dentists to come work as a hygienist.
Wow.
So,
Oh my
and you need
gosh.
to, and I tell people this too. Take a look at what it is that you want. This goes back to the very beginning when we talk about what are you really looking for.
Yeah.
Sometimes you think that you need another hygienist, but really maybe you need another associate. Maybe you need another dentist.
Yep.
And what sort of void are you really looking to fill? Those are questions that you got to ask yourself, but you got to be creative. And the other piece is, if you've got somebody in, you've got a good employee, take care of them. Do everything that you need. They are your absolute greatest asset. Whether we're talking about a dental practice or any other type of business,
Right.
your employees are your greatest asset. They just are. And you've got to treat those folks like gold, right? Keep them happy, keep them there, keep them engaged, right? And if you feel like you're starting to have someone slip, get involved. Get involved.
Hit it head on. Talk to them. Figure out what's going
Right.
on. And you
Right.
you sparked an idea in me too, because I remember I've heard this before of like having a bench, right? So you have a lineup essentially of employers or people that are interested in the position if it ever comes available. So just kind of having your roster built out. Would you recommend that, like having your backup in a sense, or having people like having that process, and then if, let's say it's not available now, but if it does down the road,
Well, never
have
burn a bridge.
potential employees
Again,
that you've already
that's where I fall back
vetted?
to. Always network. I don't know in
Yep.
today's market that you really have the ability to just say, "Hey, I've got a line of people."
Mm.
I mean, there are more opportunities out there than there are people to fill those opportunities in almost every facet of the practice, truthfully. And so you can't just have a bench of people going, "Hey, when this person bells out, you're waiting in the wings." But it doesn't mean that you can't constantly be networking, constantly be talking to people, constantly, because what you're really looking for is that one opportunity, right? And in today's market, what we're really trying to do is, I'm not really trying to find you the person that is out of work. I'm trying to get somebody to leave their practice, leave where they're currently employed at, and come join yours. You don't necessarily want the person that doesn't have work. Why don't they have work?
Yeah.
In a market where everybody has a job and there's more opportunities than there are people, why is this person not working? Something's going on there. Not to say that there's not different unique circumstances, because there certainly are.
Exactly.
But the reality is in today's market, you want to go find that person who's already employed somewhere else that is passively. They're not actively looking, they're passively looking. If something comes across that piques their attention, how can we pull them away? And the best way you can do that is obviously with a firm like ours that is constantly networking, or by networking yourself. And we do tell people when we first consult with them, hey, have you tapped your local market, your network?
Yeah.
Right? If you've already tapped out your network, the schools that you used to, the school you used to go to, right, the connections that you have, once you've exhausted that resource, then you need to make a decision as to whether you want to hire a firm like ours.
Makes total sense. Makes total. And I also always hear this a lot, Kevin. I don't know if you heard this. It's like nowadays or after COVID, it's loyalty, right? Like people just aren't loyal anymore. What do you think? You're on the front line of it. Like, do you think it comes down to loyalty, or do you think it's just changing? It's just a different industry, not even dental, like as a whole, just hiring is just different now because we can see a lot more options online,
Well, I think there are different generations of people, right? And
Yeah.
the baby boomer generation, that is a common phrase. Kids nowadays are not loyal. The new
Yeah.
generation, they're not loyal. They don't have that, and they're right. I don't know if I think a baby boomer would say that they're not loyal anymore, and that's wrong. I don't know if that's the case.
Right.
I think that people are smarter. That people are more educated nowadays. There's more access to information. So yeah, I don't know that people are necessarily loyal to a job. You can get people loyal, but the way you do that is via building a very good culture.
Right. Right. Because there's stepping stones that is more prominent now. I like definitely being able to go from one place to the next, knowing what your goal is in mind. Like, are you driving for money? Are you driving for your way of life? Right. So it is always interesting. That is constantly what I hear is like hiring and then loyalty. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm curious on picking your brain. But is there any missed opportunities that you always see that practices neglect that you would give tips to?
Um, Missed opportunities. Help
Yeah.
me define that.
Yeah. I mean, if there's anywhere from, and I feel like we did hit on a lot, but as far as like making sure that if you even have an inkling that someone's going to be leaving, to make sure that you're looking for new talent, or, just making sure, is it time? Is it they're running too late? Or are there opportunities that you're like, Doc, you see it time and time again that you should have done this, or I wish that doctors would do this, whether that's creating job descriptions or culture, it's just what is being missed over and over again that you wish you could just like tell everybody to be aware of this.
Yeah,
Does that help?
I do think. Yeah, a little bit. Number one, I do think people wait too long.
Yeah.
I think we as humans, we tend to procrastinate. We wait till the last minute to get a project started. And I would tell people, and I tell everyone this, all of our clients, we're not a magic bullet. There is not a magic bullet in recruiting.
Yeah.
There's not some lever that I can pull that's just going to drop candidates out of the sky. That's not really how it works. And sometimes I think we believe that everybody else has the answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would also tell folks that they've got to think outside the box. So I used to work for this facility in Longview, Texas. Okay, it was Good Shepherd Medical Center, critical access, or a smaller hospital, not critical access, but a smaller hospital. And I was brought in and I recruited with these guys for a period of about a year, and we were able to find them 16 permanent full-time providers in the course of a year. It was really a fantastic project. Things went really well. And a lot of people would ask me, man, why are you having so much success there? And what happened there was we had a lady by the name of Debbie Tips. She was like my on-site liaison. And Debbie was just the sweetest older lady that I have ever met. She was like grandma. When a candidate came in the door, she had homemade cookies. She had homemade cookies that were ready for them. She knew them by name. She knew their spouse by name. They had a white coat that was already made up with their name on it, with the name of the facility. Like, made them feel like they were already there. Like, she took every little step and she walked them in place to place. But then what they did, and I always thought this was genius, and I tell facilities this all the time. At the end of every interview, they arranged for the physician and their spouse to go have a massage and facial at this place called the Institute for Healthy Living, right? It was probably $150, $200 investment, right?
Okay.
But they arranged that every time without part of they'd get their itinerary, and right at the very end, it'd be like massage and facial or
Oh
pedicure.
my gosh.
And I'm telling you, I cannot tell you how many times I talked to a candidate afterwards, and they were just blown away. No one's done that for me. No, people sometimes will do a fruit basket, this and that. But imagine if I told you as a practice, right? Hey, if you will just invest another $200 on this interview, right, you're going to have about a 50 to 60% higher chance of closing this person. Would you do it?
Yeah, that's less
Yeah.
time. That's
Yes.
oh my
But
gosh.
what
Way
happens is
worth it.
inevitably you tell somebody that. I've told practices that, and they kind of look at you sideways. They're interviewing with me. You want me to pay for them to get a massage? You're like, yes, it's a $200 investment. And these people walk away and they go, I felt like home. I did. I talked to this cardiothoracic surgeon one time. He had interviewed at 15 places. Longview was at the very bottom of his list. He left. He called me. He said, I've got one complaint. I said, what's that? He said, I'm exhausted from that massage as I'm driving back home to Houston. I'm taking the job in Longview because no other interview made me feel like I'm at home. And so I say all that to say it doesn't have to be a massage, right? But it's the small touches. People don't remember the numbers. People don't remember the big stuff. They remember the small things. They remembered that you knew their name. They remembered that you knew their spouse's name. They remembered the special touches. They remember that handwritten thank you note that you gave them. And they remember stories. If you can tell really good stories, if you're a competent storyteller, right, you can sell your practice. And make no mistake, in today's market, this is a market that says you need to roll out the red carpet. You have got to sell your practice to that candidate, right? Yes, remember that resume we talked about at the beginning. The resume is the entrance exam. Okay, you have the resume, you have the experience that we need, you have the credentials that you need to do the job. That answer is yes. Okay, now we've got that. Now that person's in the door. Sell them on your practice, because if you
Finish it.
don't,
Yeah.
somebody else will.
And that is today's world, right? Like, we have instant gratification. We can see everything online. We read reviews, we compare and contrast. But on top of that, the experience is above all. Those little touches, to your very point, make the world, because they're so rare nowadays. Like, it's oh my gosh, a massage and a facial done. Like, I don't even need to know the salary at that point. Just at that, like, just thinking of that and being like, oh, you had a hard day, and like, we understand that. Let us detox you. Like, okay, that's
Well,
oh my gosh,
it's
that's amazing.
it's cliche, but one of my favorite sayings is that people don't remember what you say; they remember how you made them feel. It's the truth.
100%.
There's so many of these little truths in life, and if you've got to carry those with you into the interview process.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, we're all humans. So, like, make us feel.
Absolutely.
Oh, that is the best advice I could possibly hear. I love that. Those little, and it makes you stand out. It makes them remember you. And speaking of standing out and remembering you, Kevin, this has been amazing. And I just thank you so much for letting me pick your brain today. It's been amazing. And thanks for talking with me today. I really, really appreciate it, because this is obviously very, very high topic right now as far as hiring. So thank you for taking time.
No problem. Thank you for having me on. It really was a pleasure. You've asked some great questions, by the way. You have a good sense of what's going on out there. It's tough, but I mean, I really appreciate it, and I look forward to the future.
Well, you took on all my questions, so thank you for that. And I will definitely have you back. So thank you for joining again. And thanks all of you for tuning in. If you want to learn more about staffing your team right and making sure you're keeping them, have Kevin and his team take care of you by going to arthurmarshall.com, or you can give them a call at 214-234-3580. Or if you prefer email, you can also shoot them an email at info@arthurmarshall.com. I'll see you guys next time. And thanks again, Kevin, for your time. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.